have been an integral part of Langley. Roman, the one thing I was going to share, when I was working in the NAF Center, we used a model that M.G. Taylor had called the 7-step creative process model. And it's divided into 2 halves. So the first half of that is the subjective thing, identity, the vision, and the intent to solve a particular problem. The second half is the objective, the engineering, the building, the using, which leads to new problems. But we've got both halves of that process right here. Jill is the subjective. She is nationally known for her ability to work with large groups, organizations, and to help them with the digital transformation. And Roman has spent, according to his document, over 100,000 hours in wind tunnels in his career. So he has been hard at work on the objective, the building and using side of this. When he retired, Roman was the associate director in RD for facilities and labs. When she retired, Jill was working at headquarters when she retired as the agency's inaugural digital transformation officer. Did I get that right? And they have served in numerous posts over the years leading up to that. I'll just mention, when I got Amy's bio, I read through it very quickly, and I sent her an email back, and I said, Amy, I think I can summarize your bio in one sentence. After completing the co-op program at Langley, you have since been on an express elevator to the top. And really, that kind of speaks to our 2 presenters today. So we've actually given you 8 more minutes. We wanted to be done by 12:15. So we're now going to move to Roman. We're going to start with the American side of the Pacific.
All right, the next person we have is Jill.
Tough act to follow. I have one pro tip to offer that is bringing back a painful memory from Roman's talk, and that is that newlywed game show. If your husband or wife says, "Let's do it, honey," and you're like, we're in an auditorium of 500-600 people. What are the odds? It can happen.
Yeah.
And second pro tip, it's recorded.
Yeah.
It is replayed on closed circuit television for the duration of the cruise. So if you're going to do it, pick one at the end of the cruise, not the beginning of the cruise, because literally every time we got on the elevator at the cruise that we did this on, which was years and years ago, we were, hey, weren't you the couple that did it in the, because they asked those kind of questions and it was awful. Anyway. All right, now on to a different kind of cruise.
Where the guy's in the middle with the gay couple.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We were the couple that had been married more than 30 years and we came in last. It was hilarious. Yeah, it's because my husband was too polite. The kind of questions that they were asking, he's like, there's no way I'm answering the question. And I did. All right. So here we are. We took a cruise to another cruise to Japan and South Korea. It's actually both ports. And this is a little bit different ship. I don't know if you could tell by the scale of Roman's picture, but this is a smaller cruise ship. It had been specifically refurbished for this route back in 2022. And it is Norwegian, which is it's freestyle cruising. So it's a little bit different format. Seems like we have a lot of seasoned cruisers in the. All right. First thing to know is this is our crew who went cruising. And I'll draw your attention to the diversity of our family members here. So I was kind of all about, I wanted to see like ancient cultures and architecture and like just give me the vistas that look nothing like the United States, right? I have bone-on-bone arthritis in my knees, so I was constantly like, okay, how many steps is it going to be that day? Like, and is that a temple that's like up to the very tippy top? You know, can I make it? I actually brought a stool with me in my luggage because there are no benches in Japan and South Korea. We learned that really. No public seating really. But and every day I kind of wanted to know, what are we going to do? Let's have a plan. Like, I don't want to be that family that's like sitting there going, what do you want to do today? I don't know. What do you want to do today? Right. Like, so I was all about, let's make a plan. Then there's my husband, Kevin. He is very much a foodie, likes to try different things. At least we thought he liked to try different things. Turns out he is weirdly attached to Diet Coke, which was not available in great quantity in Japan or South Korea. He very much likes more the urban experience, like the buzz, the nightlife, like that kind of thing. And he is all about technology. Anything I know about digital transformation, I really did learn from my husband. And in fact, feeding my need for a plan, I'll talk about this maybe if I remember in a minute, but he ended up using ChatGPT to plan most of our trip. So that's kind of fun. He, on the other hand, like I talked about the Diet Coke, he is very creature comfort conscious. Like, if he wants to have a drink, it needs to be there. Like, we cannot be at the top of a Tibetan whatever and not have access to whatever it is that he needs right at that moment. He is way more, hey, that looks interesting, let's go do that. So my plans don't survive for very long when we're doing things together. And then there's our 18-year-old son. This was ostensibly a cruise where we were celebrating his graduation from high school. In fact, he graduated on June the 12th. We got on a plane in Washington, D.C. at 6 a.m. or so on June the 13th and arrived in Japan on June the 14th. The cruise left on the 15th. So we were like packing it in. He is primarily interested in sleep. He could sleep, I don't know how long. He's a big gaming kind of guy, very into anime and manga. He is a second-degree black belt in 2 forms of Taekwondo. So he actually had a lot of Korean culture. That's part of the, your journey to becoming a black belt. And it turned out, I did not actually know this, he like weirdly learns languages on the side. He's got ADHD, he learns like tons of stuff that I didn't even know about. I actually, as a surprise trip for him, chose to learn Japanese. And so by February, when we gifted him the trip, I had like 2 or 3 months of Japanese under my belt. Turned out he had learned Japanese back in like the 7th grade. So while there I am on Duolingo, he's already got, I don't even know how many hundreds of hours in. And so he and I end up in competition with each other on Duolingo. But anyway, he hates to be hot. He's a big guy. He's like 6'2", about 250 pounds, cannot stand the sweat. And ADHD, he's like, what? There's a plan? Nobody told me there was a plan. So bottom line in introducing them is like having a fun family vacation means you can't cater to any one, you have to cater to all, right? You have to kind of balance it out, especially in any given day. If you have like an intense history day and 2 out of your 3 people hate that, like that's not going to be a fun time for a family. All right. So this was our path. We basically started, we switched to right-hand mode here. We started in Tokyo, and it just basically, the cruise bounces every day, a new port, down the southern coast of Japan, and then over to Korea. Jeju is the first Korean port, and then ends up in Seoul. If you look at the timing, we basically got into port every day pretty early, 7 or 8 a.m., and left just before dinner every single day. So you are moving on this cruise. You are seeing an awful lot. And every night is kind of your recovery time. All right. I should say, thanks to Roman for doing his slides first. You may notice it's the exact same PowerPoint template. It's because when I got his slides, I was like, oh, this looks great. This is how I'll do our talk. So here's our upfront planning. I'll just focus on some of the things that Roman didn't mention. We booked this cruise on Travel Tuesday. Has anybody heard of Travel Tuesday? Okay, it's a new tidbit then. I did not know about it either. So you know how Thanksgiving's coming up? Day after Thanksgiving is Black Friday. You're supposed to shop. Then you have Small Business Saturday. Then you have Cyber Monday. You're supposed to go online. Day after that is Travel Tuesday. It is when they offer all kinds of travel deals. That's when we booked this. I actually found a deal and I was like, is this a good deal? I don't know if this is a good deal. And you'd feel like you got to book it right then and there, but you have 24 hours to cancel. My sister-in-law is a travel agent. So after I booked it, I called her and she's like, yeah, this is a really good deal. They're offering all kinds of extra perks. We got like onboard Wi-Fi for free, certain amount of credit for excursions, a couple of specialty dinners with Norwegian. You have access to like some standard restaurants and then you can pay for the higher quality ones if you want to, stuff like that. They actually would have thrown in a lot more, but I'm like, I will not be able to use that drink package. I mean, as Roman said, it's like, I don't have a liver that could take advantage of it. There's no way. Not to mention, time zone change is no joke. It's 13 hours. When we first got there, we were there, like I said, basically about a day. First several nights on the cruise ship, we could not stay awake past 7 p.m. Like, it was rough. By the end of the cruise, no problem. We did it. Okay, so got a great deal on the cruise. The other thing I would mention is we did engage with the cruise line directly. Primarily, that was because, you book a cruise, a room for 3 people. I did not want my 250-pound, 6'2" son to be in a bed over my head. I just wasn't comfortable with that and didn't think he would want to be there either, knowing he was going to spend time in the bed. So I called and was asking, hey, can you tell me which cabins I should look at in order to get like a bed on the floor? And they were so helpful. And you'll see a picture of the room that we ended up in. Really, really good people to work with. Back to the cruise was dirt cheap. Booked the flights about a month later, pretty much equal to the cost of the cruise. Really, really expensive. Part of that was me. By then the election had happened. I just didn't know what was going to be going on in the world. So I was like, I want to make sure that if we have to get out of this, this trip, we can get some money back. So I ended up booking a refundable fare class. That ended up being a really good idea because I then set a Google flight alert for my exact flight, and the price did drop by quite a bit a couple of times. As soon as I got that email, I called United, which is where I booked it up, and they within 10 minutes gave me the money back. So no problem. It's kind of foolproof. I mentioned already, I spent about 6 months learning Japanese on Duolingo. That ended up being more or less pointless. If I had learned maybe like 10 key phrases just with YouTube video or something, I would have been just fine. And everybody uses Google Translate, so no problem. Roman also already mentioned joining Facebook groups. We did that as well. Other things that I noticed on there is the Facebook groups, there's always some savvy cruiser that's like, hey, the cruise line is offering like a deep discount on certain excursions today only type thing, or the drink package is cheap or whatever, just today. So you get those kind of alerts. But the other things that we did were Reddit, a lot of Reddit forums on where you're cruising, and a lot of people will offer great advice there, and you can ask specific questions. It's just a different cross section of folks that are on Reddit. And then ChatGPT. My husband spent a lot of time kind of going, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And like thinking about my step limitations and things like that, and fed it all into ChatGPT, and it fed back, here are some things that you might want to consider, and was able to cross-reference that back to websites and things like that. So we reiterated a few times on what he was finding. And then he actually sent those itineraries to, let's see, where do I have it? We ended up not using dominantly on this trip the cruise line excursions. I'm normally a little more of a nervous traveler in a foreign country. I would just like to know I'm not going to be stranded and the cruise ship's not going to leave, because that's the big thing with the cruise ship itineraries. They will not leave you, right? If you do something on your own, you're on your own if something goes wrong. But these guys, Tours by Local, they actually have a guarantee as well that they will get you to your next port of call. It's a private English-speaking tour guide, and you can customize your itinerary. Even in the moment, if you don't want to do something that you said you wanted to do, they're happy to change the plan and go somewhere else. We actually started getting to know our tour guides several months ahead of time, so it was a lot of fun. Let's see, anything else on here? Phone. The only other thing I will mention is that we did activate we have Verizon cell phones, so we activated what's called Travel Pass, Cruise Pass, which is part of what Verizon sells. It's for me, it was like, I think we're actually, my brother's a Verizon employee and we're on his plan, so we get half price. But I think for me, it was like $6 a day for Travel Pass and like $10 a day for Cruise Pass to be able to actually call it, because we wanted to make sure, since we were going to do some things on our own, that we had a way to make calls in foreign country. All right. So you'll see as the presentation goes on, a little legend up at the top. We did 4 tours with Tours by Local. Several days we did on our own, and one day, because we did have that credit built into our package, we did a cruise ship excursion. So you'll see which things were. All right, so let's get started. So I mentioned we flew into Tokyo. We actually got there at about, I think it was like 3 or 4 at night, made our way to the hotel. So here's, if you can click on this video. This was our welcome to Japan. And it was like everything was digital. You can see everybody's looking at their phones. Customs is completely digitized, and people are just in a smooth, constant, and it's almost dead quiet. People are just rocking and rolling. So that was kind of fun. It wouldn't have been like that in the United States. Got to our hotel and we're like, we want to go get some dinner. Let's go find some sushi. So we asked the concierge and started walking around. This was right outside of our hotel, and it was just kind of the way Tokyo was. A lot of old and new just right next to each other. If you can click on the picture above the first sushi, that's a video. We found this hole in the wall. Let's get back. Right up under first sushi, this little shrimp. Yeah, they plopped this plate of shrimp that's wiggling down in front of us. And that, in Google Translate, the chef is asking, you know, do you want it alive or cooked? And we're like, definitely cooked. Like, it's been a long flight. Can't handle that. But it doesn't really translate in the picture because it's so small. But the food was absolutely beautiful. Everything, of course, handcrafted. And we were the only English-speaking people for quite a while in this place. So that was kind of fun, cultural experience. Next cultural experience is the toilets in Japan. Everybody's probably heard about Japanese toilets. All I can say is A+, we're a third world country when it comes to our bathroom. Very nice. Next day we got up and we had just a little bit of time before we wanted to board. We let our son call the shots that day. He wanted to go to a district called Akihabara, which is the anime district in Tokyo. And at the anime district, he chose to go to a cat cafe. He thought that we were going to be like having lunch and getting pet kitties. No, it turns out a cat cafe is where you can feed the cats. So we had like little fish lollipops and we pet the cats, and it's like kind of a whole Zen experience, like a calming kind of thing. And my poor husband, who tries desperately to be a joiner but fails miserably most of the time, is like in there petting cats going, why am I doing this? This makes no sense. I'm paying to pet somebody else's cat. But there we are in Akihabara, and we got actually some street food there, and it was probably one of the best meals that we had. It was this crazy long, like fried potato that was probably 3 feet long, and skewers, stuff like that. But you can see some of the anime that was everywhere, all kinds of stores and things like that. And then we went and did some shopping. My husband had researched ahead of time. And I wanted the video to have sound on this one because this was total sensory overload. It's just everywhere you are in the store called Don Quixote. It's like flashing end caps with music, videos, marketing, every single thing. And there is everything in there from a knee tonic to literally sex toys right next to each other without regard for where you are in the store. We felt like freaking puritanical Americans in that store. It was the wildest experience, and we ended up visiting Don Quixote's multiple times. It's kind of like the Walmart of stores. You can find anything in there, and the prices are really good. So that's where we got a lot of our souvenirs. All right, so then we end up boarding the ship. Let's see if there's anything here that I want to highlight. I guess I will say, Mervyn, your comment about find out what you can bring on board. The last several cruises that we were on, we found out that you can, like, we would pack light in one suitcase intentionally and bring a case of water and a case of soda on board. And that's why we dealt with my husband's Diet Coke habit. So we didn't have to pay the cruise ship prices. But anyway, yeah, I think most of the rest of that you probably covered on up. The only other thing I'll show is there's the room. So that's the room that we booked. It was a ocean view cabin right above the S in Norwegian Spirit. That's where we were, in the corner. And so it was a little bit bigger. And I would never have been able to figure that out if I had not talked to the Norwegian Cruise Line representative. She was like, yeah, you want this cabin, the third bed will be on the floor. You won't have to climb up above you. So that was nice tip. All right, first port of our journey is Shimizu. We went to the Toshogu Shrine, which was, so there's a difference between shrines, temples, and castles, right? Shrines are, you know, you're kind of making an offering. We learned that donor walls are universal. The donor walls at shrines are big bottles, like kind of almost like barrels of sake that have been donated over the years. And you'll see these racks of them as you're kind of mounting and going up. This particular one was at the top of a mountain. I didn't put the pictures of the steps in, but I was very proud of myself for making it. You can also see that there's a lot of very bright color in this architecture. This particular shrine was to the guy that kind of came in at the end of the samurai era, at the beginning of the Edo period. And there was a lot of Chinese influence. So the bright colors are indicative of the Chinese culture. The Japanese or the Shinto kind of experience much more natural colors, very, very Zen, very in touch with nature type of feeling. So you can kind of, after you get there a while, you can kind of read the room and know what you're looking at. But beautiful architecture and very old. This was our first tours by local. Our tour guide was Tomie. She was in her 70s. We learned that in Japan and Korea, you really never retire. You just transition to kind of playing your role in society in different ways. There's another time we were in, I think it was when we were getting our taxi from the cruise ship to downtown Seoul. We had a taxi driver and my son had to take a crap right in the middle of this 2-hour ride. So he finds a hotel for him to go to the bathroom in. And I end up in the car talking to this guy, and he's got his PhD in the Korean Chinese sort of diaspora and looking at the infusion of cultures. And so that's where I learned, like, almost everybody, when they retire, they kind of move on to a different kind of role, often things like a taxi driver or a tour guide or something like that. And that's what Tomie was doing. So she had kind of retired and was a tour guide. Vending machines are everywhere. You can find everything you want in a vending machine in Japan, including like ice cream. So she was teaching us how to deal with coins. For all its technology, Japan was very much a cash-based society. You have to have cash, and you have to know where to get cash. Let's see. I'm going to ask you to click on a couple more videos. Sorry. So another one of my husband's experiences, we asked every tour guide to take us somewhere local. Like, don't take us to anything that would be considered touristy. So we went to this restaurant called Coco's. There's a lot of mutual cultural appropriation happening. So Coco's is literally in English, Coco's. And if you can click on the one there, we did not interact with a human the entire time we were at Coco's. You order on a tablet, the food is delivered to you on a robot. My husband did not know what he was doing. This is actually the second delivery of food, and the people sitting behind us, we were the only American-looking people in the restaurant, but they actually helped us out with what we were supposed to do by getting our food off the robot and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun. And then Tomie was like, okay, we visited Japan. It turned out at the beginning of the rainy season. So very, very rare to catch any views of Mount Fuji at this time of year. And Tomie was beside herself because the skies were starting to clear. So she starts rerouting us to this tea farm where she's like, I know there's a good view of Fuji here. So here we are. The plants behind us are matcha tea, and there's Mount Fuji in the background. Then she ends up routing us to this black sand beach, tell us all about the eruptions of Mount Fuji. And if you can see this little rock here with the white stripe, finding that is supposed to be very lucky. That's actually, the white stripe is from one of the eruptions of Mount Fuji. And what people do is they actually write a wish on there. There's a little shrine. You make an offering with cash, and then you stack your rocks up. And at the time, I was expecting my latest grandbaby. And so my wishes, whenever we would go, were always for a healthy grandbaby. But there we are at that black sand beach. And by the time we got done with that day, we go back to the ship. And what we ended up doing every day, because we got back at about 4 o'clock, is we would go to the adults only pool bar at the back of the ship and put our bathing suits on, just kind of crash. And our son would go back to the room and get online and connect with his friends. But anyway, there we are chasing Mount Fuji all day long. And it's probably the best view we have is off the back of the ship that particular day. Next port was Nagoya. This was one where we did it ourselves. This is Nagoya Castle. So castle, distinct from shrine. This is a military facility, right? Where they had, this is actually a lookout tower, basically, that you're seeing in the background there. And there were royal rooms that were throughout there. The cool thing was, every shogun that occupied this particular castle would leave their own on the stone. And the fascinating thing to me was the lookout tower was actually closed. It had been rebuilt after World War II when people had intentionally bombed it, trying to destroy the culture. So it had been rebuilt with modern technology, and it was showing signs of cracks with the modern technology. But the sections that were hundreds and hundreds of years old, the original architecture, which is just stacked stone, were perfectly fine. And that's what you're looking at here up close. It's just, see how they've wedged in little tiny stones and all of that. Fascinating. But anyway, other things that were in there were the kind of the rice paper painted walls. When it was graduated, the rooms that were toward the front were for more common people, and as you went farther into the castle, there were rooms that were for the royal family only. They were only ever there a couple of days a year. But again, these were all reproductions because this place had been bombed. We were hot by then, so we end up going to a tea room where we have this sweet. It's made out of bean paste and matcha tea. My husband was like, "This is the worst thing I have ever tasted in my life." The tea is bitter, and that'll come back to be a feature in maybe the next slide. And then we went into the Japanese gardens. A lot of really beautiful, but kind of rustic kind of landscape. And turns out a lot of that is intentional. Then we went to a market, and first of our markets, and I made my husband go to a maid cafe. This turned out to be a slightly creepy experience. Anybody heard of maid cafes? So you can go to these cafes, and there are all of these women working there that are dressed up like little French maid kind of costumes, as you can kind of see there. Each one of them has their own sort of like YouTube or Instagram type following, very much a personality, and they have songs that they perform and stuff like that. And for extra money, you can pay to have a picture taken or a song sung to you or whatever at this maid cafe. And my husband was just like, why? And they originated from men dominantly that had a hard time talking to women. And so these maid cafes originated from providing a place where they would essentially learn how to engage with women. And then we were back underway. All right, how am I doing on time? We're almost out of time. All right, we'll go faster. So Kyoto, this was one of my favorite days. I won't go into what Miracle Rock was, other than our guide found out I had bad knees. He's like, "You must go to Miracle Rock." We had to sit there until I felt something. I felt something. Bamboo forest. We went to a temple. This was actually a Buddhist temple, and the gardens were amazing. We went to an actual samurai tea ceremony that was in an original, not restored house. That's where we learned that you're supposed to eat the sweet first. You coat your mouth with the sweet, and then you drink the matcha tea. But there's a whole ritual around the samurai culture this was what they would do before they would go into battle. It was all kind of about clearing their mind and getting in the right headspace. So here we are at one of the more iconic sites, Fushimi Inari. You've seen the red gates. And that's what it really looked like. But the farther up you go, the crowds dissipate, and you can kind of get to a place where you're quiet. I really like this picture because there's a woman behind my son in kimono walking up the path. All right. Then we went to Kochi. This was a day where I stayed on board the ship because after Kyoto, which was like a 13,000 step day for me, I was like, I'm done. I need to take a break. I ended up reading this book called The Island of the Sea Women. It's all about the women divers on Jeju. And it ended up being, I wish I had read more novels as opposed to travel planning books. It was just a lot of color commentary that I think I missed just by reading snippets about sports. But I went to an origami class, so like Roman, lots of stuff you can do on board. My husband and son went off exploring by themselves. They went to Kochi Castle and mimicked the statues. They went shopping and loved again, a lot more cultural appropriation. They love anything with English words on them. And in this case, they were like the wrong English words. You can tell it doesn't say Adidas exactly. But they liked that. And then they were in search of conveyor belt sushi, where of course they ordered fries and cheese. Who doesn't do that sushi? Anyway. All right. Then Matsuyama. Let's see. This was another quieter day. We ended up not leaving the ship until later because there was a big Mario Kart tournament in the 2-story foyer in the middle of the ship. And my son was actually the captain of the esports team for his high school. So he was like smearing little 7-year-olds at Mario Kart and apparently derived great joy from that. But anyway, and then here's the rest of Matsuyama. Beautiful, beautiful fort up on the top of the mountain. And you can see there's our cruise ship in the distance. But again, very, very steep, a lot of beautiful architecture, excellent museum on samurai culture with original suits of armor and weapons and things like that. I will say that we went to another sort of market, the Hokkaido Street Arcade that was just down the hill from Matsuyama Castle. Had to go to McDonald's. My husband was constantly wanting to find out what is a McDonald's like in another culture. So this was a spicy chicken sandwich, but I think one of the other things we got was the equivalent of a fillet of fish, which was really fried shrimp. It's like a fried shrimp patty. It's kind of interesting. And then we ended up buying a ton of Kit Kats. Kit Kat's very popular in Japan, loosely speaking. It's Kitokatsu, which means you got this, kind of. So they're very much given to kids, like when they got a test coming up or like any kind of like thing you want to wish somebody good luck for. But they come in like every flavor imaginable. I think these ones were ones we actually bought. That's matcha tea. This one was sake, and this was like blueberry cheesecake. Just random, but really, really interesting. Oh, and the little symbol from the last page. We almost missed the cruise ship coming back that day. We were down in this market. We had 45 minutes to go until the all aboard time, and had the app. We had gotten really confident in using taxi apps at that point, but there were no taxis. Like nobody was answering. And by the time we finally got one, we like are showing the guy like our all aboard time, and they give you a little card. You leave the cruise ship that has the directions in Japanese, exactly where you need to go back. And this guy was zipping down side streets, and he got us there 5 minutes to spare. All right, Beppu. This was the day that we took the cruise ship excursion. It was a really stupid day to take the cruise ship excursion. Because basically in Beppu, this is where a lot of the geothermal activity is. There's like 300 or more hot springs, or maybe it's 3,000, I can't remember. They call them hells, not hot springs. And all of them are different, depends on the chemistry. So you can see some of the ones that we visited here. Blood hell was cobalt hell was cobalt rich. Mud hell was very much sulfur rich. And turns out that it's such a tourist trap kind of in this particular area, that some of these people who own these would do anything to try to differentiate themselves. And years ago, this one got crocodiles in, and the crocodiles have since acclimated to hanging out in this very, very hot water. So that's called crocodile. This was good. There was one particular one, I think it was at Cobalt Hell. They actually cook in the steam coming from the geothermal wells, and these meat buns were just amazing. All right. Then we went to our last Japanese port, Sasebo, and the Kanmon Straits is the little right here you can see where you're going between the two islands. That's a view from our cabin of the Kanmon Straits. We went back to a Don Quixote. We decided to go back to, we were actually, at that time, we were like, all right, last port call in Japan. What have we not eaten? And the boys were like, we got to get good ramen. So we ended up on a Reddit thread. Sasebo is where the big American Navy base is there. So we were on a Reddit thread for that base and asked about where's the good ramen, and found this place. And I have to say, it was so good. I'm not like really a big Japanese food fan, but that was really, really good. Yeah. Then we're into Korea. Jeju was a great day. I would definitely go back there. It's kind of a tourist destination in and of itself. We went to the folk village. We had a guide, tours by a local guide named Charlie, who actually had grown up to folk village. You can't tell, but that's the toilet. The way the toilets work is you kind of climb up, you suspend your booty over the hole that's at the top, and coming in from this side that you kind of can't see is access to the pig pen. And the pigs literally kind of come on up. They feast on your leftovers, so to speak. And you have a big stick, he was telling us, that you carry with you to the toilet, because the pigs learn pretty quick that the good stuff, comes to the person who gets it first. And so they're right up in your business, and you have this stick to kind of keep the pig from getting too aggressive. So it's crazy. But what was crazy to me is he's probably in his 40s. So he grew up there. It was probably, 30 years ago, something like that. So this culture is still very much there. And actually, people in this folk village, this was not a museum, this is an active village. And the culture is, come on in. I mean, just very wide open. Everybody is very welcoming. And they, as much as they are letting you in their business, they are also in your business. We went to a lava tube. That was pretty cool. This is Sunrise Peak. That book that I had read about women divers, I actually saw some women divers at the bottom of the peak going into the water. They could swim unassisted down to like 60, 70 feet. Develop the technique and acclimated themselves. There's a Buddhist temple there. That was pretty cool, very elaborate. We asked again our guide to take us somewhere local, like what can you get on Jeju that's the meal that everybody would get here. He turned us on to lamal porridge and kimchi. Lamal porridge is kind of like a cold mussel stew. It tastes about as good as I'm describing it. Kimchi is very spicy. We then went to the Starbucks, which is the largest Starbucks in Asia. This is Starbucks Reserve. And it is also where my son puked his bum off. We stayed there for a minute. And then the cruise was over. And last day was at Incheon. One thing I'll mention here is you can kind of see how they've marketed. Shimizu is Mount Fuji. Incheon is Seoul. Incheon is about 2 hours from Seoul. So when you're looking at some of these foreign destinations, like really look and see, are you in the place that they're marketing, or is there some distance? Because that could be a reason for you to decide to book a tour or book a cruise ship. We went to a market. We definitely loved the Korean markets. Very, very, very cool. A lot of, in this particular case, a lot of seafood, a lot of live seafood, just waiting for you to decide that was what was for lunch. If you can click on the "'Tis the Season" video, this is another thing for research ahead of time. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but of course it's very overcast again, the rainy season. But can you see those bugs flying around? It was love bug season in Korea. Love bugs are kind of like they sound, two bugs that are mating, and they are all over the place, swarming just like crazy. So that was kind of fun. And then we got back and spent the rest of the day. I was packing 10 days on board a ship. It takes a minute to put your crap back together, and my son enjoyed finding a tribe and playing video games. All right, last big day here. Seoul, we actually had 2 days in Seoul. Started off the day that we got off the ship at Myeongdong Market. This is kind of like a kind of highbrow shopping district area. Anything you can imagine. I mean, it has like the Tiffany and things like that. So, but it also has like very specialty stuff that's more local. This particular picture, you can see the store name is Super Pet. It literally only sells outfit for very small dogs. That's all it sells. And we bought one because we have, my daughter has a small toy poodle, so we were like, it's a hospital. But that's the kind of thing that you can find at Myeongdong Market. We also went to Dongdaemun Design Plaza. It was supposed to be like this design thinking, like kind of technology hub with collaboration. I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. Randomly, there's a NASA exhibit. And I say NASA loosely. It says, anybody heard of Tom Sachs? You can Google him, but it's basically, he's an artist. And he's like, this is how I think that they built the whole mission to the moon without having any knowledge whatsoever of science and technology. So it's like a lot of Jack Daniels, duct tape, plywood, like that kind of stuff. And then he creates a whole mission with a video. So if you Google him, you can find his video. It's hilarious. I couldn't, my mouth hurt so bad from watching that exhibit. Then we went, what else did we do? We went to, again, out to find things on the town. This dessert was insane. Shaved ice with like coconut milk and mango and peach and just very different combinations of flavors that we never would have thought of, but absolutely delicious. All right, then the next day we had our guide. He was our favorite guide by far, this guy Jay. I think he knew somebody in every single place that we went, and we kind of changed the plan on the fly a couple times during the day. First place we went was Gwangjang Market, is the oldest permanent market in Seoul. I included 2 pictures just so you can see, like, it's a rabbit warren of like stalls, and every like street inside this arcade is specialty purposed for different things. Like this particular one was like the fabrics. There was literally one dedicated to tape and cardboard boxes. Like if you need anything, you know right where to go. But you can also kind of get a flavor of it because there's a particular section of it that is featured in the Netflix TV show called Street Food. There's one that's called Street Food Asia. And this particular lady is known as the dumpling lady. And you can see she has a little sign up there. She's kind of cashing in on it, but she's nothing but dumplings, and very good dumplings, but kind of cool. Then we went to Gyeongbokjeong Palace. And if you can click on that, this one has video as well. I include the video just because sometimes it's the sights and the sounds and the smells that kind of cue you that you're somewhere totally different. So we were there for the changing of the guard, and they were playing the military music that would have been in place hundreds of years ago. We can stop that. We also told our guy that Ryan was into games, and he's like, "Oh, I got to take you to the electronics market." So we end up going to this place, and it's like all like CPUs and the latest games and the latest Switch that was out, stuff like that. He was way into it. And then we wrapped up our time in Korea. her, like, again, okay, we're leaving Korea. What have we not gotten? And they're like, we haven't gotten Korean barbecue. Well, it turned out there was a Michelin star Korean barbecue restaurant, like right down from our hotel, which, by the way, we were at the Grand Hyatt Seoul. If any of you were frequent flyers on Hyatt, have Hyatt points to burn, I can highly recommend the Grand Hyatt Seoul. It was unbelievable, the perk level that they provided relative to the United States. All right, last slide. I know I'm over time. Let's see. I would say overall, you know, this was a very different culture from certainly anywhere I had traveled. I had done some European traveling, Caribbean traveling. My husband had spent time in Northern Africa, Canada, if that even counts as another country. But very different culture, and throughout the entire trip, felt very safe, very welcoming. While we were there, is that brief window when I think we were declaring war on Iran. Trump had dropped something, so we were kind of like a little bit like, is anybody going to look weird at Americans? Is anything going on? It was they're very, very welcoming, very safe the entire time. A lot of opinions of the Aussies on board the ship. The ship was very international. They would constantly come up to us to go, what's going on in your country? I know, it's just really funny. Let's see. This one I want to mention. This was a busy itinerary, a port every single day. And what I want to say about that is make sure if you take a trip like this, just pick and choose. You do not have to do something in every single port. You are going to need some recovery time, and that will help you enjoy the things you do choose, I think, all the more, just because you're not going to be so burnt out by the end. And then if you're like me and you've got physical limitations, we definitely kind of built our stamina before we left. But it was needed. Again, not a lot of benches and stuff like that. And I did print out, if anybody wants to have kind of the longer version of this, I ended up doing on Facebook, and I'd be happy to friend you on Facebook, kind of like a travel blog. So every single day I gathered a few pictures, kind of wrote down, you know, kind of some of the high points. And thank God I did, because when they asked me to do this talk, I was like, wow, I'd love to. What did I do again? You know, I really didn't remember a lot because we had done so much, and that was really, really helpful. And then the final thing that I will mention is the NASA fans. So in Japan, there's no tipping, but you do gift. So you should bring little gifts with you. I actually had a bunch of NASA pins left over from my time here at NASA, and stickers and stuff like that, and created these little baggies. And so taxi drivers or tour guides or anything like that, as soon as they found out I worked at NASA, like I needed to plan in an extra 10 minutes to have that conversation with them. People were very excited about NASA in general. So that's kind of heartwarming, especially with everything that's going on right now. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's the view from our hotel up at the top floor of the Grand Hyatt Seoul. It was a very cool trip. Very tired, but very, very cool. Glad we did it.
Hey, thank you both. Definitely loads of loads of stuff to grasp. And as I said, these charts will be when we do the recording. It will be on YouTube, so you can see that. So with that, we're just going to take a picture and we give them.
Yeah, and I know I went over time, so I'd be happy to stay after and answer any questions, especially if anybody's planning a trip over there. Happy to stay.
Okay.
We always give our speakers a NASA Langley Alumni Association mug.
Yeah. Oh, 1 second. I'm going to turn the lights on. So ready to go?
Or maybe a writing.
Yeah, I don't think it's happening.
There you go.